Hello, you are watching Holistic Pet Care with Dr. O, and we are going to be talking to Fallen Feathers today. And we had Jody Kieran on for another episode, which I'd like to invite you to watch. And that was about our um, adoption, rescue, and rehab of pet birds and parrots and those types of things, medical discussions and such. Now we're going to go into wild birds, and I'm very excited about this, by the way. Jody she is Fallen Feathers. That's all there is to it. She just is Fallen Feathers, and she does some amazing things. So I'd like to thank you so much for being here, Jody. And look at all your friends you've got. Tell us who you are and who you got there, because look how great they are. Ugh, beautiful.
My name is Jody Kieran. I'm with a group called Fallen Feathers. We take care of orphaned and injured wild birds, and we rehab them. We put them back into the wild, and we also take in the exotics. So this time around, we're going to talk about the wild ones.
Right on. Now, who do you have there with you right now, Jody?
Right here in my hand, I have Nod, which is an American kestrel. It's the smallest in the falcon family, and it is a very, very pretty bird. It's also one of the few birds that you can tell if it's a boy or a girl by looking at it. The boys actually have gray on their wings, and the girls have brown. So
Okay. Okay. So then, what are they native to this area, or does he come from someplace else, or did you find him around here? What happened to him? Why is he with you, I guess?
this poor little guy here was one that we got a call on because the people had just found the bird, okay? And when the volunteer got over there, come to find out there were actually two birds that the night before, but this one had apparently eaten the other one. They had had the birds for a much longer time than what they were claiming, to the point where a bird that they had just found would not be imprinted as much as this one is. It shouldn't be willing to sit on my hand the way that it is doing. It should be trying to get away from me as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So from the behavior that they had been keeping this and the other bird for quite a while, and what probably happened was they weren't feeding it the proper diet or enough of the diet, and they will become cannibalistic. And this one did eat its sibling, and so we now have this one, but because it is so imprinted and used to people, we can't release it into the wild because it's apt to come and sit on your lap.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
What is the definition of imprinted? Because I use the term a lot, especially with birds. And what does it actually mean? So someone who's never heard that before or never dealt with birds before, what does that actually mean, and what birds imprint?
Any bird can basically imprint. Dogs have. We've seen where dogs think that they are part of the wolf pack because they haven't been cared for them. We've seen ducks that think they're part of the dog pack because that's what they were raised with. So these guys were taken from the wild when they were young. They were kept with humans as opposed to birds of their own kind, and they actually think that they are people.
Okay, so that puts them at an extreme disadvantage. Yes, I mean they're not, as we talked about last time, that birds are flock animals, and that when they're not with a bird flock, you become part of their flock, or vice versa. But these guys that are imprinted, they actually think they're humans, right? I mean, is that wrong, or is that not quite correct? But if they imprint with humans, isn't that their social? Isn't that where they think they belong, or they think that I'm one of these guys versus something else?
Exactly, and that's why releasing something like this that is imprinted, and this guy's used to coming and eating off your dinner plate. And if a bird like this comes flying down at you out of nowhere and you aren't expecting it, chances are you're going to take a whack at it. He's going to get hurt. He's going to get killed. The other concern is the fact is he doesn't have the instincts to hunt because they've been giving him food, and he doesn't really have those instincts that he needs to survive, and he hasn't had a parent to show it how to survive. Is the other things, where to hide, this is things we need to worry about. Oh, watch out for that guy over there, he's going to get you.
Now, where do you think that people pick up birds like this? So we have two birds and that they just found them, and what were they doing? They fell out of a nest, or they went up in a nest and got them, and people just want them, or they think they're cool, or what?
We've had birds from all those situations, is the thing. These guys, whether they fell out of the nest and they happen to find them, or what, we're not exactly sure because they're not going to tell us at this point. And there is prosecution that you can be facing. My concern was more of, let's get the bird out of the situation, let's get him to a good, healthy situation. And yes, he's not going to be able to be released into the wild, but let's make him a better lifestyle than what it could have been.
Okay, so you just mentioned prosecution. You just mentioned that, situational stuff. So you, for a person like myself, a civilian, someone that doesn't have, well, actually I have some special stuff going on, but, just Joe Blow, let's say, right? Is it true that it's illegal to have this bird in your possession, and that these guys are protected federally, or what's the actual laws about these things? And I'm hoping to impress upon people, don't do this. Don't call someone like yourself, right? Even if you find these guys, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but what are the actual legalities of what you're describing?
The first thing is yes, you can pick up a bird if you find it that's orphaned or injured. That you're safe there. Where it becomes illegal is if you continue to possess the bird for longer than 48 to 72 hours. Of course, they're going to give, if you're actually actively looking for someone to take this bird on that is licensed to do so, right, they're good with you. But if you're planning on keeping it, and this one, in my opinion, this was kind of a cool bird, and we'd really like to keep it for a pet, and that was the full intention of this. This wasn't to get this bird to somebody that can help. The only time that they decided that was when they panicked because they didn't know what to do now that it ate the other one.
Now you just said they, like they're okay with it. Who are they? Fish and Game, or the feds, or who are the governing organization for what you're talking about?
There's a couple of them. Number one, you have U.S. Fish and Wildlife, which oversees the entire United States, and then each state has their own game and fish subdivision that will go ahead, and they do all the licensing for the people in that state to do what we do. So you have to have a rehab license in order to keep them. The license is only good for a short period of time for rehab, which we have 180 days in order to get the birds back into health and get them back into wild. And this one, even after 180 days, he's still going to be sitting on my finger.
Yeah, so that necessarily makes him an educational bird? Is that what we do with these guys after they don't make their, for whatever reason, they don't get released after their 180 days rehab time? What do we do with these guys?
Well, then we would go ahead and evaluate the situation of, is this a bird that is to be used for education or whatever? If a bird is non-releasable in 180 days, it is required to be euthanized unless we can use them for scientific experimentation, zoos, and education. So these guys have to be on education permits, but you have to look at what their ability. I take this one out into the public. People can walk up to him. They can look at him. They can gawk. He's not going to get upset. You don't want a bird that's trying to constantly in fear every time somebody comes near them to be put in that situation. So right. We do that. So each bird has to be evaluated as to what their abilities are and where their best use would be. We always prefer that over euthanization.
So that being said, it's hard for me to ignore our other friend that's in view. I mean, just the pure majesty of this bird is obscene. I mean, just, and I think that I just stared at this bird when I was at your house, literally just stared at him, and I felt, oh, well, that's not appropriate for me just to be staring at him, But, I mean, tell us a little bit about this just magical thing behind you, please. My goodness.
This is a great horned owl. It's the largest owl we have in Arizona and the second largest in the United States. The only one that's larger than this would be the snowy white owl that you would see in Colorado.
Okay.
So that's more where they live. Or Harry Potter. If you watched Harry Potter actually had the snowy white owl.
So if you're watching your TV or you're watching movies, then you know what the heck you're talking about, and if you don't, you have to come see somebody like you so you can learn about him. Now, what is his name and what is his story, or her? I think he's a he, right?
Well, here's the thing. We are not exactly sure. We never do DNA testing to tell if it's a boy or a girl.
Okay, so you can't tell. Not like the kestrel. The kestrel you can tell.
That's all I can tell. However, with great horned owls, the rule of thumb is anything that's larger than 3 pounds is a female, because the raptor family is the only family where girls are actually larger than the boys. And
okay.
Yeah, and then the other thing is if it's under 3 pounds, it's usually a boy.
Okay.
We refer to him as Robert because also, according to federal regulations, we're not allowed to name the birds and give them human traits. So, for simple needs of, I have 14 great horned owls here at the moment. If I say, go get the great horned owl number 3972, everybody's going to go, huh?
Exactly.
If I go get Robert, they all know. So we use it for our own abilities. We refer to him as Robert, but that is not his name. It's not a pet, is the thing we want to stress. Okay. Now, because he weighs exactly 3 pounds, Robert might actually be a Roberta.
So, I guess that's more for us, right? Because I don't think he or she cares, and I don't think we actually should either. So what is Robert Roberta doing with you guys?
He's one that I have had for 17 years. I
right on.
My first year of rehab. It happened to be Thanksgiving Day. I was the only one that apparently answered their phone on Thanksgiving. From someone in Sun City, they had this owl in their tree. And they said, hey, you know, could you come on over? And I looked at my husband and I said, hey, let's go get another guest for dinner. And we went over there. He was very weak. He had about a 5-day-old injury. His wing was broken. It was either high-tension power lines or a gunshot wound. We weren't exactly able to tell, but we knew because of the size of the maggots that had been about 5 days.
So
we have to have the wing removed, and he's been in education bird ever since.
So you go out, you get a phone call. You go out on Thanksgiving, and you pick up another guest for Thanksgiving. And you see that he's got an injury that is high-tension wire or bullet wound, and you judge the age of his injury based on the maggots in the wound. Is that what you just said? Okay, so he's got a broken wing, and then you bring this bird to your vet, or you bring it home and clean him up, or it's Thanksgiving Day, for goodness sake. So what'd you do?
Cleaned him up, wrapped him up, got him, started on the medication we knew that we needed to do, get him hydrated again, as much supportive care as possible, and then knowing from the injury, we knew it would have to be removed. There was no saving it.
Okay. So you guys, do you guys bring him to your doctor and get a full wing amputation for him, or?
Amputation is actually just below the elbow.
Oh, okay.
The federal government has a rule that anything that is above the elbow is an automatic euthanization.
Oh boy.
This is where we can agree to disagree on this one with the feds, as far as part of their reason is because if a bird's amputation is above the elbow, then it's harder for them to balance, is their thinking, and that's why they have come up with this rule. We have to agree to disagree.
Okay. All right. So you get him because a good Samaritan calls and says, I have an owl that's having a hard time. You come get him, you get him cleaned up, you end up getting an amputation for him, and he, even to a neophyte like me, he will not be able to fly. He's got a wing and a half at this point. So you're able to, he's got the right personality, like you were talking about with the kestrel and other birds, to be an education bird, and that's very fortunate for all of us. But was he just in his recovery, and you just kind of developed a relationship with him? I mean, that's the wrong words. I'm sorry, but he had the right personality to be an education bird for you after he was healed up.
I always consider it a working relationship where we developed a trust bond, where even now my other volunteers can hold him. And he will fist for you, just like Nod here. But the thing is he does tend to, because he trusts me to not put him in a situation, he will keep an eye on me when we go someplace. And as long as I'm there, he's cool. And it's not because he's my pet. It's because of the trust that we've developed, that he knows that if he sees me, I'm going to be safe. these people that are coming up and staring at me aren't going, she's not going to let me get hurt, even though I'm stuck here. And
Well,
that's the relationship you want to build.
because that's so important, and I think we should spend some time on that because these birds are not pets. They
Yes.
never were, they never will be, and we ought not to even think about them that way. And that relationship, in I guess term neophyte terms is that they have got instincts, they have got drives, they're here to do something, and the idea that you take a wild animal, a predatory, carnivore animal, and you put him in a situation where he knew that life and he can't do that anymore, and now he is dependent on you and he knows it, and then you guys develop a human animal bond that allows you guys to both do what's needed to keep him healthy, happy, pain-free, and safe, right? So can you explain that, because it's very different than having a pet? Yes.
He's not going to do tricks. That's one of the things. People, whenever they see us out with the wild, oh, do they do any tricks? No, these are not the type of birds that you have at SeaWorld, where they go out and they do these phenomenal tricks. It's not that they're not capable of it, but our goal is to show them in as natural of atmosphere as possible, so that people can get the respect for what it is their actually lives should be, and to educate them as to why it's important that we do the things that need to be done, like not taking them out of the wild and keeping them as a pet, so that they can live the life that they were meant to live.
Right.
And same thing where a situation where there's an injury beyond what we can do. Here's the first thing: please don't shoot birds. Don't do that. If I don't have a problem with hunters, if you are a hunter and you go out and shoot it and you kill it and you eat it, we're good. I have a problem with somebody that goes out with a blow dart and just puts something through a bird and it's left to wander around with this thing sticking out of its body, causing infection, slow death. We're going to go to the city.
Yeah. And I could go on forever. I do something called Instapist. I mean, the idea, I just get so enraged, the idea of doing something. These are living, breathing, feeling, loving. They experience pain the exact same way we do. And if they get an injury or a malady, such as you just described, it's end game, right? This is like, it's over for me. It's not, I'm not going to go bring myself to the doctor and I'll be fine. If my legs or wings don't work, if my arms or legs, were disabled, or I twisted this or sprained that or broke that, that's it. That's end game, yes? I mean, so I don't think people understand that or have enough respect for that. So kudos to you for getting that out there. My gosh, it's so irritating. Do you run across that a lot, where there's injury at the hands of humans just for sport and fun?
More so than what we like. The day after Christmas is usually a little rough because everybody got their BB guns.
Ugh.
Instead of learning to shoot a Coke can, which I learned to shoot, something that they find more entertaining, I guess, but not realizing what the aftermath is of it. So we do get a lot of around that time. Then there's hunting. That, again, a good hunter, you're with it. But if you shoot something, collect what you shot. Don't leave it out to die.
Yeah, and the thing is that with hunting is somewhat new to me after I went to Indiana for school and now moved here. But for folks that actually hunt and know what they're doing and are experienced and do what, they take a clean shot and those types of things, you would hope that these animals go from being here to being there in heaven or whatever you believe, like that, in a very pain-free, and I know that's idealistic of me. I get it. For whoever's watching this, is going to get irritated. But if you're going to hunt, do it clean, do it pain-free, and then use the creature that you've sacrificed. It's just really not that hard. But doing this and hurting an animal for fun, there are actually laws against that, and I really wish that could be enforced a little bit more. So, but I couldn't agree with you more. And these guys, like I said, I don't think people understand that these guys have pain perception. They suffer. They long, brutal deaths. I mean, come on now, just don't do that. Just like you said, just don't do that. And whoever's responsible for the BB guns for gifts, get those cans. So everyone can shoot at cans like all the rest of us used to do, I guess, right? So now, tell me about what you had to do in order to be able to deal with these wonderful creatures. You had to go through quite a bit with different regulation agencies. What did you have to do?
Basically, in order to become a licensed rehabilitator, you have to work under somebody for 6 months. So many hours a week. It's only about 8 hours a week that you have to have. And the big thing is they want you to see from one season to the next, usually, and to get a good variety of experience, because there isn't just a school that you go to and you learn this, 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 and this. Because we don't have that ability, it's more of, if you're there, hopefully you'll see as much a variety of problems as possible. So once you go ahead and you complete your 6 months of service for someone else, I should say, or understudy, I think would be a better word, we would go ahead and then you can go down and you can take a test that the state gives out, and once you pass those tests, then you can go ahead and apply to become a rehabilitator. Excuse me. That's where it takes a lot of paperwork. You have to be able to tell them where you're going to keep the birds. They want pictures of those things. They want to know where you're going to buy your food and what kind of food you're going to give each individual bird that you plan on helping. You
Wow.
get a letter from a veterinarian saying that they are willing to, within reason, assist you. You don't have the right to wake them up at 3 in the morning every night to ask a question, but within reason that you have someone that you can go to, because we are not vets usually. So we want to be able to have the people that have been more formally trained in all sorts of medication, because even if it's not a bird, there are some crossovers that we can take from.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's a huge process, and then it goes off to somebody that decides whether you're worthy.
And that's on the state and the federal level. Is that correct? I mean, because you have a state test and the experience as with somebody that's going to mentor you, and then you take a written test, and then you describe what you're going to do, and that goes to the state and the feds, right? Because you are overseen by federal law and federal mandate. Is that correct?
Yes, because we have federal birds, then those are mandated by federal law. The federal birds are ones that are migratory. So anyone that can be found in different states will have to be under the federal umbrella. Where there's birds that are strictly in Arizona, then you would be licensed by the state for those.
Okay, all right, that's great. Now, tell me about these birds. So these birds that are, let's say, like you said, if you come across a bird that is a wild bird and it seems injured or disabled, you can gently collect it up and then look for help with folks such as yourself or a veterinarian, and then you get them and you assess them, yes? And then what do we do? What's the life of a bird for this 180 days? What actually happens in your home with your volunteers and the care? To what extent do you guys interact with these birds? Because it's my understanding that you have to still keep them wild. You're not going to try to domesticate them or get them human friendly or those types of things, I would guess. But kind of describe that for me, if you don't mind.
Well, that's the biggest part about being a good rehabilitator and being a bad rehabilitator, is that our goal for the wild ones is to get them back out into the wild. That is the ultimate goal. If we can get it to happen, that is what we want to happen. So a lot of it is depending on, now, do you have an orphan or an injured baby? Then you've got one situation where the insect-eating birds have to be fed every 15 to 20 minutes. How do you not get involved with something that you are constantly picking up, quite often prying their mouth open, because now you have to pick them up to do that, and putting food in and put them down, and then 15 minutes you've got to come back and do that again. So this is where becoming a good rehabilitator is, and knowing a little bit about children. And once a child hits the teenage years, they want nothing to do with authority. So that's when you need to know, when they hit the teenage years and they're an orphan and you've been feeding them, you have to learn to back off and let them just be birds.
And when does that happen with these guys? Because I remember you talking about like some of the ones that have fallen out of nest, or the ones that have to be fed every 15 minutes, right?
Yes.
when do they become teenagers, a little rebellious, to where you can back off and you can be like, well, then you can feed yourself, or you can get your own, whatever it is that you do to back off. Are we talking about days or weeks, or I know the time is different in birdland, so I don't know the answers to that.
It always depends on the type of bird, and that's grackles will beg at you until you are blue in the face. They want you to feed and wait on them hand and foot, definitely. So that's one thing. Baby pigeons, actually, if I can get them to eat one seed, they will eat on their own from that point forward. They're
Oh.
very, very good at picking that whole thing up. A lot of people give pigeons a bad rap, but they're really smart birds. So, but then you have the doves where you have to watch out with them. It's because they may start eating, but they will wake up in the morning and actually go, I forgot how to eat. And they will sit there with food right underneath them, and I forgot.
You're kidding. You're kidding, right? You're kidding. So the next morning they wake up and they what they did yesterday or last night, they won't do it in the morning?
Exactly. So every bird has an individual personality that kind of goes with that type of bird. Now you'll have the ones that just will jump right in and they'll go, oh yeah, I'm eating them. But then you'll have the ones that just wake up and the lights are on and nobody's home.
I actually think I actually know some more people that like that than I do animals like that. So goodness gracious. So this is really a 24/7 undertaking for you to care for these guys, but also be observant with these guys, and also have so much damn experience to know that this bird might do this and this bird might do that. Just unbelievable. So the idea that somebody that's not experienced could take adequate care of these guys becomes just a silly, silly idea, doesn't it? I mean, goodness gracious.
Licensing process goes where you have to show your ability with, we have to request, we're going to be able to take this type of bird and this type of bird and this type of bird. You are licensed for those specific birds that you have shown.
Oh, okay. So it's a bird-to-bird license. I mean, you have to show proficiency at different kinds of birds.
You have more of the raptors, the passerines, those type of things, but you can't, if you have a license for passerine type of birds, you can't go get an owl and start taking care of it.
Okay. All right. All right.
Able to be shown that your competence in education in that type of species.
All right. Good. Now you educated me in 100 different ways when I was at your house, learning about things. Now, you guys got a duck that needed your help the first day I was there, and you made a comment about the difference between migratory ducks and what? No, not domesticated ducks. Is that the right word for it? The ducks are going to fly away versus the ducks are going to hang out.
Yeah, that's very confusing. The ducks and birds that we have in our homes, those are considered domesticated, just like cats and dogs have been domesticated. But in rehab, domesticated can also mean that they are the wild ones because they were actually born and native to here. So you always have to clarify that with whoever you're talking to because it can mean both things. Just depending on where you come from, what type of thinking that you have involved in it. The ones that come that are purchased at a pet store that you can own as pets are usually, as we're referring to ducks right now, is they're bred to be eaten. They have been bred because people like the white meat, and they will go ahead and they'll get these nice big breasts, and they have gone from being able to fly to not being able to fly because they're now paperweights. Those are that can't be released or can't migrate. Let's put it that way.
But both kinds of birds, let's say the ducks, or we can, if we go to like the local lake or we go to the local water area in our community, we might see both types of ducks out there, both the migratory and the more domesticated fat. I can't really fly because I've been bred to be chubby and meat birds. And is it a color thing? Is that how we know? Is it a white duck versus a more colored duck or?
Yeah, the white ducks are definitely going to be pets. Usually we have mallards, which are the most common type of duck here. Usually the smaller ones are the ones that are migratory birds.
Okay.
Because they have to be lighter weight in order to get from one place to another and fly.
Huh, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, you have things like that duck that needed help when I was there, and you helped get fish hooks out of the duck and those type of examples. But you also have some like hawks, and you have some of these raptors at your home. And I saw a really cool outdoor enclosure that really fostered the natural behavior of some of your birds. And I don't want to make a mistake here about what kind of bird that was. Do you remember the? Well, of course you do. You live there. What was the area that was built specifically for the banking and such? Of
And actually built for this type of a bird here. For,
yes, yes, a kestrel, right?
yes, and the reason for that is it's a falcon. And falcons are very agile, fast birds. Hawks, on the other hand, are usually a little bit more on the bigger side. They like to eat things that are on the ground, like rabbits, and that where they sit up high and they kind of swoop down and they get them. Where falcons like to eat things that are on the fly. These guys are also known as Sparrow Hawks because they like to eat the little birds, and they will fly, but they fly very quick and they're very swift and can turn corners. So we were fortunate enough to have a boy that was doing an Eagle Scout project, and Kyle went ahead and came in, and I kind of showed him, hey, this is what I want to do, and he made us one phenomenal aviary that has two 8x8 rooms on each side with a zigzag in between, so that the birds, we can make sure that they can bank and do that type of maneuvers before we release them.
That was it was so special because I saw it, and I was looking at the change, and then while I was there, they actually really, you guys, one of your volunteers actually brought one of your kestrels. I'm not sure if it was Nod or not, out there to get some exercise and do, kind of learn my natural banking behaviors, and it got just a thing of beauty, and the amount of effort and um, information and time and care and loving for these guys that go into literally even building structures for them so that tomorrow's better for them than it was today. It's just a magical thing. Even just to be there, see it was amazing. Now, you mentioned, allowing them to learn how to do what they need to do, but talk to me about your releasing these guys. When is it that you decide that they're okay to go back to the wild or back to their home, and things like how do you decide where, how do you decide when? It's got to be so much information to do something like that.
And that's where it's never one thing. First off, you have to look at the type of bird.
Okay.
Another month, if we have any white-winged doves that haven't been released, all of their buddies have headed to Mexico. We can't release them. So it's knowing where their migration is, at what stage they're going to be. So that would be one of the main things. The other thing is the bird has to be eating at least for a week on their own before we will release it. The next thing is because we do this with comfort in mind for people, quite often they're in the house, they're in air conditioning. Well, it's really hot outside. We have to make sure that they're used to the outside temperatures before we can release them. The other thing is, I might be up late at night. I don't turn the lights out when the sun goes down outside, and if they're used to being up later, we need to make sure that they're used to the cycle of the day, so that this is when you go to bed. Johnny Carson is not on anymore. You need to go to sleep. So though it encompasses so many different things, then you have to figure out where are they, what area do we release them in. Make sure that they're going to have their food source.
Right. Now you had mentioned something about the owls being released at a certain time of the year to make sure that the owls that are being released aren't going to be in competition with the established wild owls for food or territory, or I don't understand it 100%, but it was brilliant what you said. The amount of thought process that went into it was blinding. So talk to me about that a little bit, because that really seemed to encompass all the thoughts that had to go into down to like a week or a month. It was crazy.
Well, what we're looking at specifically is the great horned owls, and they do stay babies longer than probably any of the birds. And what we base this on is the fact that the parents in the wild keep their babies with them till about the end of September.
Okay.
And at that point, owls are very solitary birds, except during nesting season. And that's when they will stay together as a family. And then at the end of September, they're kind of like, okay, you go do your own thing. and I'm going to go over here and chill out by myself. The mates don't stay together. They kind of all spread out. Well, up until that point, mom's got her protections on where she wants survival of her children. So she's going to protect the territory around where she is. And if we were to release a baby into that area when mom's protecting it, she's going to kill that other animal of any sort that comes in, because this is what she's established to continue on her genetic DNA.
Mm.
Realize that just about everybody, we're kind of put on this earth mostly to reproduce. When it comes down to it, and especially the wild ones, that is where they're not building temples somewhere that they need to do this for. Everything is for their children, and they're going to do their best to make their genes move on forward.
Now, how this is so basic. How do you know that? I mean, who taught you that, or how'd you get that information? Just working with somebody else, or does Fish and Game help you with that? Or that's a heck of a lot of information, isn't it? And it's just one little piece of what you do every day. How did you get there? That's crazy.
A lot of it is learning from others, definitely. It's, again, internet, where you've got some really great information and you got some really awful information and learning to filter. A lot of it is observing what's going on out there. We know what the parents are doing. We know that we see them there with their babies still. We know that they will be cannibalistic, that they will protect their territory at all cost. It kind of just follows within the logic.
It's so important, because you're describing a human-animal bond that falls short of domestication. It falls short of 100% dependency. It just they need you for food while they're healing, but they are so dependent on you to know what the heck you're doing and to know when and the wheres and the whys, because although we hopefully all practice under the first do no harm umbrella every minute of every day, and every action that we take, by our ignorance, by our I just don't know, we can certainly cause these guys some harm or put them in harm's way, I guess. So doing your due diligence, I got nothing but kudos for you. My gosh, it's just phenomenal. The amount of information and education and the effort that you put in to make sure these guys, when they do go back, that they have the best chances that they can, that have a really good, successful life. I just adore that. That's fantastic. Now, there are a couple things that we talked about in the past that I thought were, I don't know, they were just amazing. And one of them was, what do I do if I find a baby bird on the sidewalk? I want to catch it up and I want to bring it home, or what do I need to do with these? Slow down and do what's best for the bird. What do I do to make sure at first do no harm, right? And I'm talking to people, including myself, that I wouldn't have the slightest idea except for trying to make the phone call and trying to help this poor little thing that needs my help. So it's all you, my dear. Tell me what I do if I find a baby bird.
Well, the first thing is that baby birds do leave their nest about a week before they can fly. And they come down out of the nest, and mom and dad follow them around and teach them how to find food and to hide from cats and all the things that birds need to know to be a bird. And what usually happens is you go tra-la-laing by, mom and dad see you, and they hightail it up into the tree. The baby who has not quite learned how to do this is sitting down there, and you go, oh, he can't fly, obviously he needs help. You pick him up and walk away, and mom and dad can't stop you. So the thing we ask is, if you do find a bird in this situation, we want you to sit back and watch and wait at least for 2 hours. The parents will come and visit the baby at least once every 2 hours and feed them, but then they're going to go back out and get some more bugs. They have to collect over 1,000 insects a day to feed their babies. So they're out doing a lot of grocery shopping. They cannot be sitting there with the baby day in and day out. The other misnomer is they can't pick them up and put them back into a nest.
Right,
and if you find a baby that's on the ground and you don't feel it's in a safe situation, but you think the parents are around especially, you could do a makeshift nest where you take a box or a basket, put that up in the tree, put some rags or twigs in there, and put the baby up there and let the parent continue the job that way. It is a wives' tale that if you touch a bird, that the parents will reject it because they smelled that you touched them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because birds have a very poor sense of smell except for turkey vultures. And turkey vultures eat dead things. The only way they're going to find it is by the smell. So that's why that's the exception to the rule. But otherwise, pick it up, put it back in the nest or up in a makeshift nest, and let mom and dad take care of them.
Okay.
They're going to do a better job than we ever could.
So that's brilliant, right? Because I think that animal lovers, the first time you see a baby bird on the ground, I mean, you just want to help, right? And the ability to just sit back, sit and wait for at least 2 hours and get far enough away where mom and dad don't feel threatened by you, and will come down and visit Junior and make sure that he gets one of the 1,000 insects a day. Is that what you said mom and dad have to find, is 1,000 insects a day? Oh, that's just ridiculous. And then it's okay if you touch baby bird and put baby bird up in the nest again, or make a makeshift box so that baby bird's up off the ground. And so those things, I was a victim of the wives' tales until I met you. I honestly thought that that's how you did it. And I've actually been through vet school. I've actually been through internships. I mean, I have a license that says I know what the hell I'm talking about, and clearly that's not right in this case, right? So I got to thank you so much for that. Now we go ahead.
Then you want to get into well, what if they're injured? And the things that we normally are looking for is if it's limping, dragging a wing, acting lethargic, gets caught by a cat or a dog, missing a body part, or bleeding. Those are times we want to intervene immediately. Don't wait 2 hours. This bird needs your help.
Okay, and then and by needing your help, so we have an injured, lethargic, bleeding, missing a limb, gosh help, and then attacked by a cat or whatever it is going on, but this bird needs your help. What do? We put it in a little towel, we put it in a box, we get it to a veterinarian like right now, we make a phone call to you. Once we've gotten this injured bird, what do I do?
First thing we want you to do is we want you to get the bird warm.
Warm.
Not give it food, water, anything until the bird is a little bit warmer than your hand. Birds don't digest when they're cold. And if you start putting food in or things like that, they're going to have less energy for trying to get themselves warmed up is the thing. So first thing is to get them warm.
Okay.
And the next thing is, and you can do that by putting them on a heating pad. I had somebody I told you before that had baked potatoes, and they put the baked potatoes in a box and put a towel on top of it and put the food on that to keep them warm. So you can be as creative as you like on that. The next thing to do is, and this is for most birds, is that you can take dry dog or cat food and soak it in water and let it get spongy. And once it's spongy, you can take little pieces of that and squeeze the water out so it's moist but not dripping, and place that in the bird's mouth. So the biggest thing is never, ever, 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 under any circumstances whatsoever, put water in a bird's mouth. Did I make that clear? Don't ever do that. And the reason for that is the bird's airway is on the bottom of their mouth behind their tongue. And if you start dropping water in there and one drop gets into that airway, they will aspirate, they will die, and there's nothing anyone can do to change that.
So when you're talking about warming them up, it's just a little bit warmer than you and I are.
Yes.
So when you're baking your potato or heating up your heating pad or doing whatever you're doing, you're just looking for something a little bit warmer than you and I are. We're not looking to make these guys really hot. We're not going to put anything there, because many times, at least in what I do, we have to be careful, because if these guys physically can't get away from the heat source, if they physically can't move away from whatever you put in there, they might get burnt, they might get hurt, they might get, we just overcompensate in our goodwill. So I just want to make that clear. And then also, your point was never, ever, ever put water or fluids in a baby's mouth. Is that what you just said? I want to make sure that we get that out there.
In any bird's mouth, because you may have an adult that's lethargic. If he's lethargic, he's not having control of his opening and closing that airway, and one drop gets in there, he will die just as quickly as a baby. Okay. So if a bird can drink the water on their own, cool bean. put it in a shallow bowl and let them have that. But don't ever go putting something like water in a bird's mouth.
Okay, good. Yeah, because you can end up killing them. I mean, you really can end up killing them. Now, that being said, we pick up baby bird and we make them nice and warm and we call for help from you or from a veterinarian who knows what they're doing with birds. And then, like you said, we can moisten cat or dog food and till it's spongy, and then drip all the water out of it so it's eatable, I guess, and put it in there. And never ever ever put any fluids in their mouth. Now, what about hummingbirds? I saw hummingbirds at your house, and you taught me so much about hummingbirds. And not only when I was at your house, but also some of the things you gave me to pass out to clients and such. So a really good nutritional supplement. But also, hummingbirds are very special creatures, aren't they? And they need some special care, some special consideration, and special education and information that you might be able to, well, I know you can, impart to everyone that's listening and everyone that's ever seen a hummingbird. So can you do hummingbirds for a bit of time?
Oh, definitely. But hummingbirds are very cool birds, and if you live in Arizona, you're pretty lucky because there's a total of 18 hummingbirds that actually come through our state through at one point or another. So we do have the Costus and the Annas that live here year-round. So it's not, they don't all migrate away. So you can leave your feeders up all through the year. Make sure they're clean, but you can put them up. So if we get a hummingbird in, hummingbirds actually gape, which means they open their mouth when they're hungry, and the mom will then put insects and nectar into their mouth. So when we get a baby hummingbird in, quite often we have to put a very, very small tube down their throat to feed them. It's not something that you just know how to do. Right. So if you do get one, what you can do is you can use the sugar water, and if you take a straw and you put the straw in the solution and put your finger over the end of it, and then put the bird's beak in the other end that your finger is not, do not take your finger off the thing of the straw and put their beak in there and let them lick it out. Okay, it's a little harder when they're gaping like that, but if you get them to close their mouth and get them to try and lick, that is the best way. But baby hummingbirds have to be fed about every 10 minutes. It's only sun up to sundown, so we do get to sleep, but it is very high maintenance. Now the next thing is that hummingbirds have a very specific diet. And they have a lot of insects and nectar, and the stuff that you're buying in the store is very expensive sugar water. And we're asking, in fact, we've got our little, do not buy this, make your own. If you go to our website, we do have a recipe where it's 1 cup of water, 1 cup of sugar, excuse me, to 4 cups of water, and then you want to boil it till it completely dissolves, and you can use that for a temporary solution. It doesn't have the proteins and the things that the hummingbird needs to sustain it, but at least you're going to keep the bird hydrated. You're going to give it a little Snickers bar, basically, to give them a little boost of energy until you can get them to someone like us. The food that we buy is very expensive. It's over $137 a bottle. Really made in Europe. The ironic thing is they don't have hummingbirds in Europe, but that's where they make the food. They have a bird there that has a similar diet as a hummingbird, and that's where they came up with the formula. So if you have a hummingbird that you think you want to try and help and raise, by the time you get the food from Germany, the bird will be dead. So it's very important that you do get it to someone like myself that has that food available.
Okay, now for folks like myself and other folks that have hummingbird feeders out, because we love to see them around, there are really specific cleaning requirements, and there's some health issues that you brought up when we were together that I think are really important. Would you mind going over those real quickly?
One of the biggest things is hummingbird feeders should be changed daily. That is the ideal thing. Partly because it's very quick, especially when the temperatures are warm, that it'll start creating the fungus inside of there. And if a hummingbird comes and is having a good old party drinking out of your cup there, basically they can get the fungus on their tongue. Their tongues are very unique in the fact that it goes from the tip of their beak all the way down into their gullet, back around, and actually attaches to the top of their head. And if you sit there and watch them when you have one in captivity, you can see the top of their head move as they're licking. It's really kind of cool to watch. But if they start developing the fungus, they cannot retract that tongue. And then they'll end up dying because they can't get the nutrients. They have this fungus that will continue to grow on their tongue. So cleaning your feeders on a daily basis is really important. What we try and encourage people to do is don't try making the sugar water every day. Make a gallon of it. Put it in a milk jug. Keep it in your refrigerator and then change it out every day. You don't have to go through boiling the water, but keeping it in the fridge is going to keep it from developing that fungus.
Fungus, right, that fungus. That's so important. Now, you would give me kind of a graphic, a picture of a hummingbird who had gotten the fungus from probably a dirty feeder, and it's a dead hummingbird on the ground with its tongue sticking out because it couldn't retract its tongue because of this fungus. I mean, what a horrifying picture, my gosh. And that the idea that some people think that they drink sugar water, and they do for a Snickers bar, but the amount of effort that they put in to get those wings to do this X amount of times a second requires protein. So they are insectivores, aren't they? And then they just like a little bit of sugar on top. Is that right? I mean, they're bug eaters, yes? Is that right?
They're very much insectivores.
Okay. All right. That's, and I guess when we see them only drinking out of our sugar water, and we think, oh, look, they must only be drinking or going into those nice red flowers that we have in our yard, and then just think that that's the entirety of their life, which is, it could be a fatal mistake, I think, at this point, that you have to respect the fact that they get protein from insects, yes?
Well, if we only ate sugar, we'd all end up diabetic, and if you don't take care of yourself properly and you're diabetic, then we know what happens there, and you don't seem to survive too long. And it will be the same for the hummingbirds. Their organs will start deteriorating after about 4 hours of just being on sugar water.
4 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours. And hon, what's the lifespan on a hummingbird?
It again depends on if it's in captivity or in the wild. In captivity, things will live longer because you don't have the outside elements to deal with. You've got food always readily available. If those are optimal, they can live 10 to 12, sometimes 15 years. Years. Wow. In the wild, the average life expectancy is 3 to 5 years.
For a hummingbird, that's fascinating. I love that. That's fascinating.
You have to figure any wild bird, actually, their life expectancy is half of what it would be in captivity. Simply because you can't have a bad day. Remember, somebody's going to eat you.
You can't have a bad day. That's something that we should all remember, right? I mean, just that one day and it's over. It's it's a deal breaker. Now, talk to me about educating the public with these wonderful, wonderful birds, because there's so much we don't know, and there's so many folks that have never seen these wonderful creatures up close and personal, where it's always something that's off in a distance. It's not morally considerable. It's not my problem. It's not whatever. What's going on there, Nod? You bored? Are you bored?
We just need a little adjustment of the feet.
Oh, I see. It happens to me all the time. But so tell me about your educational programs and how. I mean, and why and how do you do it, and how would somebody who's interested get a hold of you to come do what you do to try and educate the world about the importance of these guys?
We do a couple different types of what we call education programs. One where we get up and formally talk to a group, and we cover a lot of what we've already discussed today on what to do if you find a bird and what not to do. And then we bring out a few of our guys with us, and we'll talk about what makes them unique, what their diet is, where they live, their structure, whatever it is that we can help people get an appreciation for the birds that are out there. The other type of education program we do is if we happen to have a festival or an event where we can set a tent up, and people can come up and we can talk to them casually, one-on-one, to tell them about our organization and about the birds that we have, and we try and bring a lot of those guys with us at that point.
Yeah, that's cool, huh? And I think that, as in with this show and every other, I guess, event, the higher you can make the ooh-ah factor, like the oh, look how cute that is, or oh, how beautiful that is, or I've never seen that before. The ooh-ah factor carries a lot of play, doesn't it? I mean, it makes it real.
I am a firm believer that having a live bird, a lot of people feel that these guys, because they weren't meant to live the life that they were, that they should be euthanized because it would be too stressful for them to be in public, be captive like that it would be an awful life. And in some regards, I agree with them because I've seen birds that don't want to be captive. They will bang themselves around, and they're miserable. And I'll be the first one to help them move on to what is going to happen if we wouldn't have intervened, is what we're looking at there. But then you have a bird like Nog that he's perfectly content to sit here and listen to us talk. And the chance for people to get an appreciation for this bird because of this, again, somebody screwed up. They didn't. They decided that he didn't deserve the life that he was, and although we wish that's what it could be for him, he now has a different purpose, which is hopefully going to educate someone for his brothers and sisters out there and cousins that they're going to have a better life because he's allowed someone to get an understanding of what they're all about.
Right, right, right. That's so important. Now, if somebody wants to get a hold of you for all of the wonderful things that you do, both with our pets, pets, parrots, wild birds, find it on the street, what any help I can provide, or if I need help, how do people get a hold of you? And what what do you want to tell people? I mean, from your heart, because I know that everything you do, I've met you, it's everything's from your heart. So I just love you to spend this time, get the word out that's important to you, and then tell people how the heck to get a hold of you.
Well, again, I'm Jody. The group is Fallen Feathers, Rescue, Rehabilitation, and Education. We have a website, www.fallenfeathers.org. We are on Facebook, Fallen Feathers Rescue. We have a Twitter account. You can give us a call. Our number is on all of those wonderful places. We also have a YouTube channel, which has got some videos that are phenomenal, that show some of our guys, and they're kind of fun to listen to. And so any of those, definitely look us up there if you have a question. If we don't know how to help you, we will definitely try to find someone who can and to get you in the right direction would be the thing. Again, there's no such thing as a stupid question. And I would rather answer 10 stupid questions than have to explain to someone why the bird died.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. Gosh, that's fantastic. Now, I have no way to thank you for your time and your expertise, because you doing what you're doing, helping all of these animals, all these humans, figuring out a better way to interact and have a stronger human-animal bond. You're perfect. You're just such a blessing. So, go ahead.
Come help us, I know it.
What?
I said, oh, you are, because you're going to come help us, and I know it.
Yeah, you kind of sucked me in like I saw you suck in so many people. There's something about, you had mentioned how your group is a family, and you absolutely are a family of just a bunch of loving, caring folks, and you can feel it in the energy there. When I was there at your place, you've got so many wonderful creatures there, and I was sitting at your house, and it struck me about how darn quiet it was there. I'm like, how come there's not a racket? Because there's like this overall sense of peace and well-being at your house, and I think that it just kind of soaks in, and it doesn't matter if you're two-legged or feathered. It just doesn't matter. There's a real wonderful thing that's going on there, and heck yeah, I want to be part of it. And yeah, it's only an hour away, so yeah, I'm going to see you on Thursdays. So yeah, and then that big red beautiful parrot better be there. That's all I got to say. So once again, so I thank you so much for your time and everything that you do, and for educating me. I really appreciate it, and hopefully we can spread the love, right? And Robert, what are you doing? He says, I'm done.
Dinner time.
Oh, dinner time. I guess we should let you go. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and we'll make sure to get together and spread the word and do some more maybe educational events together and see what we can do to help these guys.
Sounds terrific. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.
You will. Bye-bye, hon.